What is up, fam? Thank you so much for tuning in to So Real Sports Talk. Today, we have a very special show. We have the computer himself, Casey Passier. Casey, how are you doing today, my friend?
Pretty good, Sunil. Pretty good. How are you?
Look, I'm trying to upgrade the dating of what we talked about. A couple weeks ago, you were the encyclopedia. Now you've elevated to the computer, and then I got to figure out what's higher than a computer. So
Yeah, don't go too fast because you're gonna run out of things to
I think I already
update.
did, man. My knowledge is only yay big. So this is our fantasy football show. We are talking everything fantasy football, giving you our takes as well as answering your questions. And so, Casey, it was a very interesting week, man. I don't know if you've noticed, but fantasy is crazy this year. I feel like the NFL is a lot more competitive. You're seeing guys that you didn't expect to do well. Guys that you expected to do well, not do so well. Some people, we've already seen some injuries to some big name players. So a lot to talk about, my man. How did you feel about this week in fantasy?
Um, there's some things that did feel like they were kind of solidified, and some things that feel up in the air a little bit. I think people are a little freaked out. People that own Alvin Kamara are probably a little freaked out right now,
Yeah,
just because of the high draft capital you spent on him and some of the other guys you would have been able to get with him, or instead of him with the draft. So, I think that there's a couple of things that are a little surprising, like Kamara. Um, James Robinson, I think, is kind of a good story still, and I think that we will continue to see him rise a little bit. We might get to talk about him later.
yeah,
Um, and then there's still underperforming guys. Hawkinson hasn't been that great recently. CeeDee Lamb hasn't been that spectacular recently. So in redraft, these guys, the value falls off pretty quick because you're just working season to season. So some of these guys have a name that you'd be able to still trade on.
yeah.
You can get some value out of them that way. But I don't know. It's been fun. I think every year that I feel this way within the first 4 or 5 weeks that like, oh, this is nuts. This is crazy. It's opposite of this, or this guy's not hitting. But then you have some of those standards that are still right there. So as the rest of the season plays out, some of these things might not seem like anomalies. They'll actually, have good narratives, good explanations behind them, and we'll see why.
Yeah. And unfortunately, last week we did see some pretty big names go down to injuries. Some are coming back, some not so much, but kind of throwing this on you last minute. But let us talk about maybe some of the injuries and what you would do as far as, um, I guess, working through them and what maybe your strategy would be around some of these injuries. So, first one, big one, was having a monster year, running back out of Chicago, David Montgomery. It seems like he's gone for the season, right?
No, I think that they did the MRI and it actually came back negative. I think it's just a knee sprain, but they are saying 4 to 5 weeks.
Okay.
So it's a chunk of time, um, but he should be able to and come back healthy. When he comes back, he should be able to go. So right now it's Damian Williams. It's the backup there. Used to be at Kansas City. And then behind him is Khalil Herbert, who's a rookie out of Virginia Tech. And so if you're a David Montgomery owner, there you're either going to have to go trade for Damian Williams, or you may have just gotten him off the waiver wire after you paid something for him. But I would go target Khalil Herbert instead. He's more of a David Montgomery prototype, and he's fresher. He's got he's just as quick as Damian Williams, if not a little bit better. Um, I like him a lot, and he's going to be free off your waiver wire. I just go pick him up.
Right. I also look at, in situations like this where, the guy is coming back, maybe you have a trigger happy person that owns him. What would you think about making a trade to maybe get David Montgomery on the cheap because maybe somebody is willing to trade him that has him because they might just not trust that he's going to come back healthy.
It might be a little difficult. They probably spent pretty high draft capital on him. I'm guessing they probably drafted him 3rd or 4th round. So in a redraft league, you have lots of. It's going to be tough because we still have this influx of wide receivers, and most people are going to have 4 to 5, 6, 8, depending on your bench. They're going to have all these wide receivers, and so you're going to probably have to pay. You're going to have to pay another running back or a top end quarterback or tight end to try to go get him. Unless you can find the right package deal for the right guy, it's going to be tough to go get him. But I think that if you found, let me see, I'm just trying to glance at some names here. You might be able to take somebody like Cooper, Amari Cooper, and go get him. I think that that's probably a high scoring enough wide receiver that you could probably do that.
Right. And maybe somebody, we're going to be talking about it later, maybe somebody who might be on that trending list up or down, depending on, how you look at it. Right. So definitely another guy, I know a fan favorite of yours, Mr. Mixon over there in Cincinnati. Seems like his injury isn't as bad as initially thought. I guess he's already back at practice. So he might even play next week. Looks like it might be kind of like a week-to-week situation. But is that somebody that you feel like can come back? Or is that somebody maybe you're, trading, to get like premium value maybe from somebody else?
Yeah. I think, no, I would not trade him. If you're a listener of this show, you know that I'm pretty high on him. I think he's my number one running back preseason, right? Which we should be revisiting those lists pretty soon. That would be pretty fun.
Yeah.
But no, I would not trade Mixon. He's still, even with that injury, I think he's an RB1 right now. I think he's top 12 or 13. So I wouldn't trade him at all. If you're the Mixon owner, I might do the same thing that you should do as the David Montgomery owner and go look for the second backup. Samaje Perine is probably going to go in there this week and get a bunch of touches if he can get used, but it might not look that great. And if anything actually happens and Mixon can't go or that injury gets worse, because I think they said it's a mid-ankle sprain. So it's a little bit lower on the foot than on the ankle, and it shouldn't affect his mobility that much as long as he can play through whatever pain he's enduring. So the other guy on the depth chart is Chris Evans. And again, he's a running back that's built a lot like the starting running back that's on that team. He's a 5-star running back that went to Michigan, but all these 5-stars have been to Michigan the last 4 or 5 years, just fall off the planet, just like Donovan Peoples-Jones and Nico Collins, and then they get drafted late, and they actually are productive guys in the NFL. So,
right.
Chris Evans is the other name that I'd be looking out for if I was Joe Mixon.
Got you. Any other big injuries that were fantasy impacts? I think those are the two big ones that I remember.
Teddy Bridgewater.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Teddy Bridgewater. If you had Teddy Bridgewater, you might be a guy that's streaming quarterback. So there's plenty of people that you could still pick up, and regardless if you're that guy, there's plenty to still pick up. Trevor Lawrence is probably available, and he's starting to look a little bit more consistent, a little bit better. And your own San Francisco 49ers, Trey Lance. He's one of the Konami code guys, so if he's playing, if he's starting in the game, you play him.
Absolutely. And that Teddy Bridgewater, maybe not as much as an impact as far as in redraft league starting quarterback, because you probably have better starting quarterbacks than him, but may affect the way that the other offensive weapons on that team start to play with Drew Lock in there. Obviously a much more volatile quarterback than Bridgewater has been. So
I think if Drew Lock is playing, you probably want to fade every other wide receiver, but Noah Fant seems to still get his, so you'd want to keep him in there. And then their backup tight end is Big Albert Okawibabam, something like that. He's out of Missouri. He was a rookie last year, and he's a metric breaker when it comes to like player profile stuff. He busted stuff at the combine. He's basically an AJ Dillon type, but at tight end. He's just this huge dude, but has unruly speed for his size, and he's quite good with his hands. So that's another interesting take, or another interesting guy to kind of take a look at out of Denver, because he's going to be playing in the middle of the field there. And I mean, Drew Lock is either always checking down and dumping it off to these guys out of the backfield. I mean, or he'll take a shot deep if he's got somebody with speed. Cortland Sutton doesn't look too fast right now. Looks totally fine. And that's good. I was wrong. You know, I saw a couple of videos of him preseason and early season. I thought it looked a little sketch, but he seems to be doing just fine. But if it's Drew Lock throwing the ball, yeah, I'm a little scared.
Yeah. J.R. Meadows or Lance is about to be great.
Oh, boy.
Agree, man. Let's just hope he starts, man. There's a lot of talk that still might be Jimmy. So to be determined. So I wanted to challenge you a little bit, Mr. Casey. I think one of the interesting aspects of fantasy and one of the things that separates the, good fantasy owners to the great fantasy owners is the ability to pick up on these undercover superstars. So people that are outplaying maybe their draft pick status or outplaying definitely their name, and realizing around this time big names that might be underperforming compared to their name. So I know you mentioned Alvin Kamara being somebody who obviously was a first round draft pick that might not be performing at the level. Another guy I know you love, Joe Mixon, has been up and down, even though his numbers are more from the first few games than just consistently been dominating type of numbers. So that's another guy that might be, because he's probably a first or second round pick that might not be performing at a first or second round level. But we want to flip it on the other side. Let's talk about undercover superstars. So we're 4 weeks in, about to start week 5 tomorrow. Who are some people that have maybe impressed you that you think are going to be that are superstars that may not have the superstar name quite yet?
Yeah, this is kind of a tough thing to do, because I think at 4 weeks we're still kind of picking out. We're still trying to determine those trends, and we're trying to figure them out, to try to get ahead of them. So I don't know. I had a tough time getting a couple people down that like are guys that we don't know about, and maybe I'm overthinking it. Some of these people don't actually know about.
You know about everybody, so you got to think like the people that aren't you.
Yeah. Well, and I don't know. For me, it comes down to guys that I like too. And I think we've talked about this before.
Yeah.
I like playing with guys that I like. Guys that we don't know about. I think the biggest one on my list is going to be Van Jefferson. I think that he might be, and I don't know how many people are going to know that name, but he might be just poised to take over Robert Woods' role without Robert Woods like even having a say in the situation.
Right. He seems to have a real nice connection with Stafford. Seems like that's Stafford's deep threat.
Yeah. It's either him or Deshaun Jackson. If Jackson gets released and actually can turn the burners on, Stafford finds him. But otherwise, he's looking towards Van Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Van Jefferson came out of Florida last year, and he had arguably the second best route running in the rookie class, right behind Jerry Jeudy. But he was actually at Ole Miss, stuck behind DK Metcalf, AJ Brown, Elijah Moore. He was part of that crew, and then transferred out and went to Florida. They had no quarterback there. Drafted late to LA last year. Still kind of had no quarterback last year. And now he's really kind of stepping up. So I like him a lot. I like him kind of as this sophomore riser. And I think he might be there for a long time.
Yeah, I mean, consistent double-digit kind of points per week. He's not he's somebody that is getting like a touchdown pretty much like every other game or something like that. And yeah, I mean, it seems like the Rams offense is throwing the ball more than previous years. And obviously that makes a lot of sense with Matthew Stafford being there rather than Jared Goff. And it is interesting that Robert Woods has been kind of MIA. And it seems like obviously Cooper Kupp is having a big year with him. And Van Jefferson seems to be that second option that, as far as receiver, that Stafford likes. He obviously likes Higbee a lot too. But yeah, it seems like Jefferson is gonna be that guy that overtakes what people expected maybe Woods to be. And now that would be a nice pickup, definitely, to either stash on your bench if he's still free, but maybe even throw out a guy or trade somebody to get him, because the Rams are going to be playing meaningful football throughout this whole season. And that's something that's important to look for in fantasy, because the Rams are definitely a playoff bound team. They're in a division where every win matters. And that's a good sign for people that have Rams people on their fantasy team, because they're going to be playing and they're going to be trying to win. And there's no what's it called? There's no tanking for anybody at the Rams. One guy that I think, and he's a name I think that people know about, but I think that he's somebody who has found, I think, is in the right situation to where he could clearly be a fantasy riser or fantasy superstar. And that was somebody who had a big game last week. And you've talked about him before, Cordell Patterson. I think that people have known about him and known about his ability to kind of be the running back plus the receiver and kind of like that utility kind of guy over the offense. But it seems like he's in a good situation where the Falcons are trying to figure out what their identity really is on offense. And it seems like, even though you would think it's Ridley and then Pitts, but it seems like it's kind of open to whomever is willing to step up in that game. And Patterson's somebody who, when he was with the Bears, was somebody who showed flashes of having, had some big games, but he never had that consistency. I think where he's at right now, you might be able to see him actually have some consistency and have a fantasy impact. Whereas before, you kind of had a hit or miss based off of the matchup and whatnot. What do you think about him as, an undercover superstar?
Yeah, I like, well, one of the things I like about him for fantasy reasons is because he has a running back designation. And so it's just another guy that's scoring points at the running back position that we could put there. It's almost like Taysom Hill scoring as many points as he can potentially score, and he is a tight end, and you get to put him into that spot. I mean,
and he could be the quarterback.
Yeah. And for fantasy purposes, it's kind of gold when that guy hits. But the way that Atlanta is using him is really interesting too. It shows that they don't have that much faith in Mike Davis, which means I get to talk about somebody else here coming up in a little bit. If Mike Davis is going to lose that job to anybody else, it's Cordell Patterson or this guy, right? But Cordell Patterson is also kind of filling in a little bit of the Julio role and playing well on the outside. He's tall enough and big bodied enough that he can handle that. And the Bears tried him out at running back, and they tried to even make that work, use him a bit like they did Tariq Cohen. But Atlanta's unlocked it somehow. It's pretty spectacular.
Yeah, and I think the thing about Cordell Patterson is he might be a player that owners that have him are willing to trade just because they don't maybe have the confidence of the consistency with him.
Yeah.
So if you believe that he could be consistent, because he's probably somebody that guys are putting in on the flex when they don't have another guy that they really trust there, right? Or somebody's injured or bye week or something like that. He might not be on somebody's every week starting lineup, but I think he can be a player that should be in your every week starting lineup. So if you're seeing that he's owned by somebody who might not necessarily be utilizing him, I think that would be a really smart maybe person to target in a trade because I think that he is going to be a viable option, and there really isn't much else going on in Atlanta. So, we're going to talk about it, but, Ridley and Pitts seem to be kind of at best. So, I think Cordell Patterson is probably going to be the biggest scorer on the Atlanta offense from this point on.
Yep.
Who else is on your list, Casey?
So the next guy I have is Quintez Cephas.
Ooh, he was on my list too.
Right
out of Detroit. Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. All right. So this guy, he's a sophomore. He's a second-year guy again, out of Wisconsin. And so I got to see this guy a couple times up close. He dealt with a scandal at Wisconsin, so it actually cut back a lot of his playing time while he was there. He's cleared of everything. He went through the process, lawyered up. We got to watch it here on the local news.
Wow.
It was a little thing around here, but he was completely cleared of everything. And in fact, I think he won some things back. But he came back and he had a really good senior season with Wisconsin and was drafted to Detroit. And then after Kenny Golladay left last year, and they didn't draft anybody big. I mean, they got Amon St. Brown. It wasn't. They didn't draft anybody in the first 2 rounds, kind of like people thought they might. There was even Jamar Chase talks for Detroit for a little while. So he kind of escaped that. And the offseason, they brought in Rashard Perryman and Tyrell Williams, but none of that's turned out either. And so he's one of the last men standing, but he's kind of this. He's this solid dude. He's a lot like Deebo Samuel to me, a lot like Deebo and even DJ Moore. He's not as quick as these guys are, but he's just, I should say he's not as fast as these guys are, but he's just as quick in and out of routes. He kind of has that bulldog and running back mentality after he catches the ball. But also he goes down for the deep ball, and he can get up in the air and high plant the ball pretty well. I like Quintez Cephas a lot. I like his story. I like that he's from Wisconsin, and Detroit has nobody there. So I think that he's a guy that could cement himself as the number 1 wide receiver there. And if and when they get their next quarterback, if they get Sam Howell out of North Carolina, I think that that's a perfect fit in Detroit, and that would be great for Cephas. But for this year, he's probably not a guy that you're starting anywhere. He's probably not going to help you out a lot this year. But I'd keep an eye on this guy.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, he seems very consistent with double-digit points every single week. He's not necessarily going to get you that 25 to 30-point game just because he's limited by who's throwing him the ball. But he also seems to be his favorite receiver as well. And especially when it comes to crunch time, it looks like he's looking for Cephas and only Cephas. And you're seeing, I mean, you talked about it. Hawkinson isn't necessarily having the season that he wants to. Cephas is taking a lot of those catches as well, deep balls and, possession type downs. It seems like it's going to Cephas. So that's why he was on my list. He seems to be a consistent double-digit point person. And sometimes that's better than these guys that are kind of up and down, right? You could, I'd rather have somebody that's getting 10 to 15 points every single week than maybe somebody that could get me 25, but the next week get me 8. You know what I mean? So sometimes it just depends on what the makeup of the rest of your team is as far as whether or not he'd be a viable option for you. So
sometimes you just need a mix up of that. So you need a mix of all of that stuff involved on a team. And if you need him that week, and sometimes it's nice if he's got the Sunday night game or the Monday night game, you can sit back and watch and go, oh no, I don't have to try to shoot for the moon. I can play Cephas this night.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So Joey had a question for us, Casey. Need 2 wide receivers, or I don't know if that means he needs 2 wide receivers or a second wide receiver. But I'm guessing, let's just say it needs 2 out of these groups. Woods, Boyd, M. Jones. I'm thinking that's the dude from
Marvin Jones, right?
Marvin Jones. Okay. I'm assuming it's Marvin Jones. Sutton or Shenault. Which 2 would you choose?
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't want to choose 2 from the same team. I would probably do Tyler Boyd and Laviska Shenault.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be
Boyd's
interesting.
been getting lots of targets.
Yeah, I definitely Boyd would be for sure a pick of mine just because I think that the game against Green Bay is going to be a shootout. So I expect Burrow to just be airing the ball out, especially if Mixon is hobbled and doesn't go that game. I expect it
And
to
if
be
Yahir Alexander's out for Green Bay.
Yep. And more importantly, because I expect on the other side, Aaron Rodgers to be able to take advantage of a not so good Bengals defense, right? So I think that Cincinnati's going to have to score a lot of points to stay in the game. So Boyd definitely would be the one. It's going to be interesting how the Bengals come back from all of the chaos that's going on there as far as off the field incidents with their coach and whatnot. They do have, I think, a favorite. I mean, the Jaguars. No, okay. I meant the Jaguars. Yeah, sorry about that.
I didn't know if two things happened.
No. With Jones and with Marvin Jones and Shenault,
yeah.
You think their offense will still be able to perform?
I think so. I think they're almost young enough and dumb enough that they're just going to be like, oh, okay, and not really even understand the real seriousness of what might have just happened.
Right.
They're just going to go to work. I mean, at least that's what I hope. I'm kind of, in the background, I'm kind of a new Jaguars fan, and was not in on the, fire Urban 0-3. Let's get rid of him. 0-4. Let's get rid of him. I'm like, give the guy a year. You give him 2 years even. Let's see what happens. And then this happened over the weekend. I was like, well, if I fire him now, I don't care.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, they're in the news for the wrong reasons. But, Joey, to answer your question, I think I'd go with Boyd and Shenault as well. They just seem like the most consistent out of that grouping. And we just talked about Woods, probably name-wise would be the one that you'd want, but it seems like he's fallen to the number 3 option.
If Teddy plays this week, though, Joey, you could play Sutton instead of Boyd. I wouldn't mind that.
Interesting. Kyle, the man Shanahan, is that a Bengals fan? No, he is not any team fan. He just is an NFL fan and has gear from every single team imaginable.
Almost. I'm working on it. Hey, if anybody wants to DM me or something and want to send me some gear from their team that they don't wear anymore, I am all game for that. I have a younger brother that sends me stuff that he doesn't wear anymore because he hops teams all the time. So anybody wants to DM me and send me some gear that they don't wear anymore of a team that they now hate, I'll do
that. Awesome. Was there any other undercover superstars on your list?
He might not be, one that is not undercover at all, but last week kind of showed that we can't lose our attention on this guy is AJ Dillon. Be ready. I don't know what's going to happen there in the future, but he's an NFL running back that could do a lot of damage if he gets an entire workload. So everybody knows that name, especially if you're in Wisconsin. So I just want to throw that out there. But the other one is Max Williams out of Arizona. It's kind of a weird one, and I'm not to say that he's going to be the next Darren Waller or Eifert or anything like that, but he's got a quarterback and an offense that wants to throw the ball everywhere, and he's a really competent tight end. I believe he came. Oh man, I might get this one wrong. I think he came out of Minnesota, then he was drafted to Baltimore first, and then traded or after the released and had to go to Arizona after that. But he's been on the Arizona depth chart for a while now, playing behind guys, and to finally kind of see him take off has been pretty cool. I think 2 touchdowns in the last 2 weeks, just like Dawson Knox, but not many people are talking about him. So I think that guy's a little undercover. And when it comes to tight end, you just want 1 touchdown a week. If you don't have the big 3, the big 4 guys, you just want 1 a week. And this guy's going to be available on lots of waiver wires. You can pick him up. And he's getting 2 the last 2 weeks. So
everybody's eating over there in the Arizona offense.
Yeah.
And they play my 49ers coming up this week. So Could be brutal.
Ooh,
All right.
okay.
So now let's get into the meat of the show, trending up and trending down. So what this segment is going to be is me asking the computer of knowledge over here, Casey, about certain players in the league, and he's going to give us his take on whether or not they are trending up or trending down. And we are going to start with a name that is really well known in PPR leagues, but now with kind of what's going on over there in Pittsburgh, I want to know what you think about Deontay Johnson.
Oh, I've never been a big fan of Deontay Johnson. It's kind of weird. Like, he has been the PPR monster for a couple of years, and it's weird because I like Emmanuel Sanders. He gave me real Emmanuel Sanders vibes off the bat, both being in Pittsburgh to start their careers. So, but he never excited me in a way that like I actually pursued him. I don't think I own him anywhere. Never drafted him. Never tried to trade for him. So I'm really just kind of neutral on him. It's not even that I go out of my way to avoid him. It's just that I don't know. I don't want anything to do with him. But that being said, I am probably fading everybody on the Steelers except for Najee. Like until they make a change at quarterback and something's proven, in redraft leagues, I would get out of every Steeler wide receiver that's out there.
Interesting. So you're saying trending down?
Yeah, trending down.
Okay. I kind of.
Sorry, do you want to go through these wham bam or?
Yeah, I mean we could do it whatever way you want to do it.
Oh, okay.
I think I would actually hold on to Deontay Johnson out of all the other receivers. Seems like I don't think Ben is going to get benched just because of what is going on behind Ben. Like, yeah, I mean, if he gets injured, then obviously maybe that. But
no, I mean, he's not going to get injured. He's going to. Fake
injury. Yeah, okay. But I think this is his last season. I don't think he wants to go out that way. And it seems like out of all the receivers, Deontay Johnson is the one that he trusts the most. So
I see that, yeah.
So, I mean, he's had some big games. He had almost a 20-point game last week in a loss. So, yeah, man, I think that you hold on to Deontay Johnson. I think that he's going to be trending in a positive way. But I agree with you. I think the other two receivers, you could let them go. They're going to be very inconsistent. I think Deontay Johnson's the only receiver in that Pittsburgh offense that gets enough targets to where he'll always be viable. So he's going to have big games if he scores touchdowns and consistent games, even if he doesn't score touchdowns. So, but we'll move on.
So if I had any Deontay Johnson shares, I would trade him for Van Jefferson.
That would be interesting. I would probably make that trade too. As if I had Van, I'd probably make that trade. Right. Corey Davis from the Jets. So this, I think, trending up and down is also going to be a kind of like a precursor to how you feel about Zach Wilson as well, right? Because if you think that Zach Wilson is trending up, more than likely you think Corey Davis is trending up and vice versa, right? So by answering this question, I think I could kill two birds with one stone, Casey. So tell me, how do you feel about Corey Davis and his way of trending?
So Corey Davis's trend, it would be one of those, what do you call them? His trend would be like, the first, because it's going to parallel with Zach Wilson's if we're talking that way.
Yeah.
It might be a little bit sharper, but Zach Wilson's trend, it seems to be, is going to be like, that few hundred miles right outside the Rocky Mountains where you might be going up, but it's taken you a long time to go up. So as far as this season's concerned, I'm probably not going out of my way to get Corey Davis. I'm not going to go out of my way to get Zach Wilson, but I might go try to trade for Corey Davis. So I'll say Corey Davis is trending up just because he does seem to be getting most of the targets, especially when it comes to scoring touchdowns. I think he has 3 of their 3 of their 5 touchdowns this year or something like that, or 3 of their 6. I don't know.
He's
But he
had
does
2
seem to be
solid fantasy games. 2 out of the 4
very
games
first
have
week.
been very solid. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the first week he scored 2 touchdowns with Zach Wilson, and then last week he only had 1, but he had a great week last week.
Yeah.
So I do think that he's trending up. How much out of my way am I going to get him? Again, the wide receiver depth is just so great out there that, if you could maybe, I don't know, if you get somebody that likes Christian Kirk and you can get Corey Davis for a Christian Kirk type, or Cole Beasley, somebody that's attached to like a high prolific flying offense, but they're the 3rd or 4th wide receiver, and you can kind of just pay. Heck, even AJ Green, I'd give AJ Green for Corey Davis right now.
Interesting. Let's talk about AJ Green. He's on my list to ask you as well.
Oh, wow.
AJ Green, once
and
again.
We didn't even talk about this before.
That's a nice segue. AJ Green, look, was beast, or supposed to be the next Megatron when he came out of college.
Yeah.
Had, some up and down years with Cincinnati, mainly due to injuries. Now is in a super high-powered offense. First 2 games, pretty, basic, non-existent.
Yeah.
Last 2 games, on the other hand, been, been a very good fantasy producer. So what do you see? Are you more first 2 games or last 2 games with AJ Green?
Yeah, man, I'd like to see like 2 more, just because it
no,
looks
man.
like Rondale Moore.
No. This is trending up or trending down. We are trying to catch it before. This isn't all we now we know. No, it's like project.
Gotcha. Yeah, because it looked like Rondale Moore was about to break out. Like it was just 2 weeks ago. He was about to just explode and be this number 2 target in Arizona. And AJ Green just kind of put his foot down and said, "No, I ain't done yet." So
y'all must have forgot.
Yeah. Now he is the number 2 target there, and depending on who they're playing, DeAndre Hopkins and Jalen Ramsey went at it head to head last week, and it sounds like those guys like to do that. They have quite a bit of respect, and they like to play each other, and so. But Kyler just stayed away from him this week. He's like, I'm not even going to deal with that. And with the weapons that they have, why not? So I think when it comes to that team, you kind of look at DeAndre Hopkins is still the first target, but if he is playing, or the first read, but if they're playing a team that has a lockdown corner, and the corner might be young enough and fresh enough that he can actually keep up with DeAndre, then you have to start to look at those second and third options. And that's why AJ Green and Max Williams have been just kind of spectacular. So I think AJ Green is trending up.
Let's go. I agree. Let's get into some big names. We talked about one Jefferson, Van Jefferson. Let's talk about another Jefferson.
Boy.
Justin Jefferson.
Yeah.
So he's somebody who still hasn't had that huge game. He's had some decent games, but he hasn't had those type of games that he had last season. Obviously, he came into the season on a little bit of an injury, but let's talk about it. 4 weeks in, is he trending up or trending down?
Yeah, I think he's back to trending up.
Okay.
It didn't look great to begin with. And very similar start to what he had last year. In Cleveland has a pretty good defense, so I don't think that's anything to really be mad about. He did do all of his damage in the first half, almost first quarter, I think. So it's like you'd like to see another score in the second, especially when you get one that early. You always want to see him score again later on, but I think he's still trending up. That offense, again, they're not going to run into a Cleveland type defense all the time. Going to have some Detroit games coming up. Going to have some games where Justin Jefferson will light it up. So I think this week we can say he's back to trending up.
Okay. So let's talk about Allen Robinson.
Oh,
So quarterback situation is a little bit up in the air over there in Chicago, but let's assume that Fields is the guy.
they said today.
Yeah, okay, great. So
They said today.
Justin Fields is a starter, played really well last week, made a few amazing throws. Allen Robinson's the wide receiver one there. How do you feel about his prospects with the new quarterback change?
I'm still. It was kind of the joke all offseason that Allen Robinson now gets to play with the best quarterback of his career, whether that was Andy Dalton or Justin Fields.
Wow.
And so I'm still not out on Allen Robinson. He is obviously trending down right now. And I know lots of guys that, especially dynasty wise, they're like, yeah, that's it. That was enough for them. After the first 2 games of Justin Fields, that they're out. And I got to keep thinking back to Allen Robinson with what was it, 1,600 yards and like 14 touchdowns with Blake Bortles or whatever it was. It was a crazy stat line or a crazy season, and he gets Justin Fields now, and it's miles better than what Blake Bortles was. So he's trending down. I'd go trade for him if you can get somebody that's going to give him to you cheap.
Yeah, you might be able to get him cheap. Let me see. Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah.
So the reason why I want to ask about him is the Raiders seem to be a legit team. They obviously ran into a juggernaut. I think the Chargers are
but
one of
didn't
the
back
best
down
teams in the
and
NFC.
but didn't back down and came back in the second half and gave him a fight.
So here's why I ask about Renfrow. Obviously, the number one option there is Darren Waller, right? That's beyond that's who Carr is looking for every single play is Darren Waller. Yeah. But there's also Ruggs there, and then there's Renfrow, and
Brian Edwards.
And Edwards, right? So when you go to Hunter Renfrow, who seems to be the possession receiver, right? What is your take on him? Is he trending up or trending down?
I think he's got to be trending up. I mean, it's one of the weirdest things in the league, and of course it happens with John Gruden and the Raiders. But they drafted all 3 of those guys last year, and Ruggs was the first wide receiver taken off the board in the first round. Brian Edwards was in the 3rd round, and Renfrow was right after that. So I don't know. It's just kind of crazy to figure this all out. And Hunter Renfrow is like he's not supposed to be doing what he's doing. He's not fast enough. His hands aren't big enough. He's small as far as stature wise. Even Wes Welker or Damian Amendola, they were a little bit stockier. I had a little bit of muscle going on. So I don't know. He's just a little bit of an anomaly. But you're right. He's the second target there, and only behind Darren Waller. So it means Darren Waller's managing everything in the middle of the field or the flat sometimes, and Hunter Renfrow gets to do whatever he wants to do or whatever they ask him to do. And he, at this point, is doing it better than the other 2 wide receivers, and he's beating his guy.
I like it. My last question kind of encompasses a team.
Okay.
The receiving core for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What are we doing with these guys? Are they trending up or are they trending down?
I think last week was a little bit. I think everybody was in their heads last week with that game. Like, it's too from Wisconsin. It's 2 deer that come out and they just sit there and look at each other. They're ready to fight. They want to fight, but nothing really ever happened. It was an entertaining game, as far as storylines were concerning, but we obviously didn't get the fantasy production that we thought we were going to do. They're trending up. If you have a pass catcher in Tampa Bay, play them. If you have 2 of them, you should probably play both of them. you just play them, because we saw in the first couple of weeks that both he can support that many people. He's not going to support all 4 every week. That's near impossible. But he's going to be able to support 2 of them.
Harry Morrill puts in, it was a rainy day. Weather didn't help. Definitely, the way it was pouring, you could tell some of those balls that Brady was throwing definitely weren't Brady balls. Hashtag Brady balls. All right, let's go into some running backs, and we'll go with the guy that I know you love, Saquon. Did you say Saquon? Saquon Barkley.
Yes, trending up. It's great to see. It's great to see him. Just I don't know. It's great to see him running at full health again, or as close to it as we've seen in a while. The first couple of weeks were a little bit rough, but I've always had some faith in him, or enough faith in him. I still think that he is the best. He's the best all-around running back, and maybe the best athlete in the league.
Definitely has the nicest legs. Definitely has the nicest legs.
For sure.
Somebody who had a big game last week, Austin Eckler. Kind of been forgotten, right? First few games was kind of under the radar, but had a really great game last week. You think it's going to be more like last week or more like earlier in the season for Austin Eckler?
Yeah, I don't.
Putting you on the spot there.
that one's a little more difficult. I think he's trending up, or on trend for what a lot of people expected and wanted out of him. He's you drafted him with really high draft capital. He was probably a first rounder or a second round pick. I'm sorry, a second round pick in your draft. So, yeah. And again, I don't want to say like trending up, but like keeping his trend. You start him every week. There's no reason to pull him off the bench. I don't think, just because there may be those weeks that he's going to get you 7 or 8 points. There's definitely going to be those weeks, but I mean, there was a comeback in my league, in my home league this week. The guy was down by 40 points, and he had Waller and Eckler. He won by 2.2 points or something like that, and it all happened kind of in the last 10 minutes. That last big long touchdown run that Eckler had built up to that. So you're going to miss out on things like that. 26 points, 28 points, 30 points in full PPR leagues, something like that. You got to play him.
I like it. Let's go James Robinson.
Yeah. I think he's
trending up,
trending up. Yeah, I like what they're doing with Robinson now. I think that they learned their lesson, and they're going to keep Carlos Hyde off the field unless they absolutely need to, or to spare Robinson when they need to. But I think Robinson has proved enough that the doubt was put back into our minds when they drafted Travis Etienne. Everybody was like, "Oh, well then he's not good, and then we're not going to deal with this." But he's proven everybody wrong, proven Urban wrong, and I think he's trending up. Play him if you got him.
Jonathan Taylor from the Colts.
Trending up. Yeah, for sure. There's another guy I didn't get to talk about on the Colts, and that's Michael Pittman. I think that both these guys, if you're in dynasty leagues, you want to go acquire these guys, and if you are, if you need to go trade for a guy to kind of change your league around right now, say you're 3-1 or 2-2, but you took a hard injury to like Christian McCaffrey or something like that, or you took a Dalvin Cook injury and he was out a week. You can go acquire one of those two guys, and I think that they're going to have, whether they make the playoffs or not, I don't know, but I think they have kind of a late surge. Their offense is starting to click. I think they might have a late surge where they're going to win a bunch of games and make themselves competitive. And if you have teams that are in those competitive games, you want them.
Okay. Mike Davis from the Falcons.
Yeah, trending down. I think. Yeah, I think it's time for Wayne Gallman to. He got a couple of touches last week, but he's been, had to work into this role. He had to get healthy and then, learn what they're doing down there. But I think we're about to see a Wayne Gallman takeover.
Okay,
So
I
Mike
like
Davis is
that.
trending down. Yeah.
Wayne Gallman was a fantasy gem last season, so if he could turn
Yep.
into back-to-back years of a fantasy gem,
Yep.
that would be
Yep.
something.
He ran
All right,
that. He ran that Giants backfield a couple of times before
yeah,
Saquon got there. He had the load, and he had to do it again last year. And yeah,
and
you're not.
perform.
He's not going to beat out Saquon, but he can beat out Mike Davis.
Guy you talked about, Alvin Kamara.
Yeah, I mean that's trending down. I think
Oof.
it's trending down for me, and I wouldn't trade him, but if you've got competent people to play instead of him, I wouldn't be surprised to see people bench him for the next couple of weeks. When Mike Thomas comes back, I think it's a different story, and then maybe we could revisit it.
If he comes back, right? He might want to be
Yeah, if he
traded,
comes, yeah,
right?
if he comes back, yeah.
All right, and the last one for running backs, and then we're gonna switch to QBs. Antonio Gibson.
Trending up. I don't
Interesting.
think. Yeah, I don't think that. I don't know. He's one of those guys too that's almost Austin Eckler like, where he's gonna go off for 28 points. If you have him on your bench when he does it, you're gonna kick yourself. Otherwise, he's got a pretty good baseline where he's gonna get certain targets. He's gonna get the bulk of the carries. Obviously, fighting with J.D. McKissick, and that's a little frustrating. But um, it looks like Taylor Heineke kind of likes to spread the ball around.
Man, Heineke's a baller, baby. If he's
He's
not on
fun.
your team, you need to go get him.
He was one of the guys that almost made my undercover list, but he's a quarterback and everybody knows about him at this point. But
Yeah. Hey,
man, he's
man.
he's a little superstar that's blossoming right now.
His story is great. His story
Yeah.
is great. All right. Let us move into the quarterback position. Um, let us start with Lamar Jackson.
I mean, he's the best Konami code quarterback that we have in the league. So until he
But he's been
really
up and
pulls an
down.
RG3,
He's been up and down
yeah,
though.
yeah. I just think that I mean, if you're playing in super flex leagues, um, I mean, it depends. It depends on the type of league that you're in. If you're in a single quarterback league, you're not going to find anybody off the waiver wire that's really going to probably outplay him, or at least has that ceiling. So you want to play him. And even on his floor games, it's 19 points, 17 points, and that's something that you can kind of stomach. It's excuse me, it's when Matt Ryan puts up 6 points at your quarterback position
Right.
that you're just, it kills you.
Let
So
me throw this trade out to you. You have
okay,
Lamar Jackson. Somebody
okay,
comes at you with Sam Darnold.
in a redraft league,
Yeah.
I'm taking Sam Darnold. Yeah,
So that's what's interesting, right? Because you
yeah,
would think Sam Darnold is much lower down, but the type of year he's having is much
yep.
more consistent and better than I think Lamar Jackson's having, which I don't think anybody would really have thought that previously, right?
No, probably not.
So in that case, you would have to say maybe trending down.
Maybe trending down. Sure.
All
Yeah.
right, let's go. Joey Burrow.
Oh, trending up. Yeah,
You think he's going to put up
yeah.
some monster games?
I yeah, I think he still could. I think that I don't know that they're 3-1 right now. I
Yeah.
think that, and yeah, that one of the wins is Jacksonville, but Jacksonville came out like ready to play. Like they wanted to punch Cincinnati in the mouth. Cincinnati was on a maybe I don't know. They came out on that short week and they were slacking first couple of drives. Their defense was really bad. But I don't know. They're 3-1. I like the way Burrow is spreading the ball around. If Mixon is healthy and stays healthy, so like I don't even mind if they sit Mixon this week. If they just want to say, yeah, you're fine, but it's Green Bay. We're gonna throw the ball all around the field. Samaje and Chris Evans can go catch balls. Yeah, you just stay healthy. We'll still get you 1,200 yards rushing. Don't worry about it.
All right, Ryan Tannehill.
Man.
Now, his receivers seem to be not healthy right now.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. They lost to New York. They lost to the Jets in overtime.
But that was without Brown and
without
Julio.
Those wide receivers. Yeah. I don't know. He was still able to find Josh Reynolds. Yeah, but still. And he found Josh Reynolds on a few plays. And actually, Jeremy McNichols out of the backfield. I mean, he's probably trending down until those wide receivers come back. I'm probably not playing him. I'm not playing Ryan Tannehill over Lamar Jackson.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I have Tannehill in a few of my leagues because he was one of the later quarterbacks that were still good, like lower down, that was still available, but I thought might have up season, and unfortunately I've been kind of getting burnt on that one. So let's go with Trevor Lawrence.
I think he's trending back up a little bit.
From what? Yeah. What are you seeing? Where is the fantasy? Where are the fantasy points that you're seeing that makes you think that he's trending up?
Well, I think the first 2 weeks were just pretty awful, and trending.
But he had his biggest fantasy game in week 1.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he? Yeah.
3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions.
He also 3 interceptions. Yeah. And that was against Houston, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's put that into there too. I mean, Buffalo just shut out Houston like 40-something to nothing, didn't they?
But what I'm saying is that you're further giving me proof that how is he trending up? If that was his best game against a really bad team and he hasn't been able to get even close to that.
Maybe I'm just tilting a little bit. No, but I think because I've been able to actually watch a couple of games of his, like I don't mind the struggle that he's going through right now. I mean, and we've all heard it now because 4 weeks, they've lost 4 weeks now. Hopefully because it's 4 and it's done and over with, we don't have to hear about it anymore. But I think everybody kept talking about he's only lost 4 games between high school and college in the last blah, 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 blah. Like, good. That stuff is all gone. If we actually watch him play the position, he's very good. He's very competent. He's very fluid. The coaching staff is what's kind of scary there right now. So for redraft purposes, trending down, you're probably not picking him up unless we get a little bit later into the season and you get hit with a bye week. Then he might be somebody that's available when he plays Houston again. Go grab him. If you're in dynasty leagues, nobody freak out. Don't trade him. Don't get rid of him. You weren't going to play him that much this year anyway. Just stash him.
Right. Drizzy Jake has a question. Should I trade Swift and Judy or Renfro, one or the other, just for D-Hop? For just D-Hop. Drizzy, who are your other running backs available? I think that plays a role into it. But
I gotta imagine that. Yeah, I was just gonna say for redraft, I gotta think that Swift might have been your third running back drafted, maybe just second or third running back drafted. The Judy for D-Hop trade is pretty interesting. That might be able to get done straight up. I think Swift would obviously get it done straight up, but it depends on the running backs that you have there.
Wait. You think Judy for D-Hop? You mean Judy and Swift for D-Hop?
No, not both for. not both for D Hop.
You think Jared Jeudy for D Hop straight up is somebody would take that trade?
No. Now that I'm looking at that again, no.
Wait, in what world was that ever even something
I don't
that
know.
was close to?
Right, but I'm having a hard time even reading this. Should I trade Swift and Jeudy?
So Swift is part
like
of it,
Swift and
Jeudy or Swift and Renfro. Which one? So Swift plus one of these receivers for D Hop.
Okay, for some reason I was thinking it was Swift and Jeudy for Renfro and D Hop, and I'm like, well, we don't need Renfro. Okay, Swift and Jeudy or Swift and Renfro for D Hop.
Yeah. I personally, Drizzy Jake, don't think either of them get D Hop, but either of those trades, unless the team that has D Hop has two stud receivers and is really hurting at the running back position. D Hop is just too good. He's consistently going to get you 15 to 25 points a week with the way Arizona is playing right now.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to go pay for somebody like D Hop. You might be paying for something that you're not going to get the value out of just because there's so many weapons there now, and Kyler really does want to spread the ball around. I mean, you might be able to get Diggs even a little bit cheaper because people are a little out on him. Maybe you go get Amari Cooper. We kind of seem to talk about him on this show a lot.
You love him. He's your guy.
Yeah, I do like him. Yeah, maybe I might go look for somebody like that instead of D Hop.
I think D Hop is just too premium of a guy, Jake, and
yeah,
I think it'd be tough to pry away D Hop from somebody unless their team is just not doing well because that's the only player he has or something. Maybe he's trying to get more depth and stuff that or well-rounded.
Yeah.
Maybe then, but
and I think that was confusing for me too, is because because I'm pretty high on Swift and Jeudy to begin with. Like I could not put those two together to trade D Hop right now. Yeah, there's no way.
I can't believe that you thought Jeudy for D Hop was even something that's possible.
Yep. No. I was just talking it out and yeah.
I'm like, especially with Drew Lock at the quarterback.
yeah. And Judy's hurt right now. He's not even playing. No. Yeah. I was totally confused, and I was just trying to talk that out, and was like, yeah. Sounds like and I don't know. Sometimes the dynasty mindset in the offseason is so, man, values get so crazy during the offseason, just because of speculation. In season it happens because somebody throws up 30 points or they throw up a goose egg. In the offseason, it just becomes a new Instagram video comes out and everybody goes crazy.
Right.
So, yeah.
That's awesome.
Talk it up. I'll take one L.
You've been doing pretty good this show. Well, guys, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. Thank you so much for the questions. Hopefully we could get you some wins with our answers. Casey, anything you want to leave everybody off with?
No, I don't think we've mentioned it in a couple of weeks, but if you got anybody playing in the Thursday night games, take them out of your flex.
Very, very smart advice right there. Strategy. That's what gets you from the basement to the penthouse. All right. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. For those of you that are still looking for some content, I'm going to be on in about a half an hour, 7 o'clock Pacific time with Rob Shu. We are talking all things 49ers, recapping last week's game, previewing next week's game. Casey, anything that you want to plug?
No, come follow me on Twitter at KCSP. It's a grand old time. It's not all fantasy. It's not all football.
It's right there.
It gets a little spicy. But
I'm going to try to get Casey to start a hunting YouTube channel, and then we'll start plugging that.
Oh, yeah, that would be interesting. I have to to do more hunting then.
Or just talk about it, right? So anyways,
Or just
guys,
talk
you have a beautiful night. Stay safe, stay hydrated, and we will see you next time.